Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the next Tax Stories episode. Today, my guest is Dick Molenaar from Netherlands. Dick is a tax lawyer and he specializes on arts and sports. Dick is also a partner of All Arts Tax Advisors for more than 37 years. So it's a great privilege, Dick, to have you today on our show. Thanks for your time. How are you? And welcome.
Well, thanks for the invitation, Yanis. I'm doing well. I'm working and living here in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And as you explained, we are tax advisors for sports and arts, and nothing besides that. So that's a very active area. People performing, competitions. So our clients are achieving results and having nice performances and such. So yeah, it's great to do, and we like it.
Thanks. Did I miss anything important from your CV that
Well,
I should mention?
perhaps that besides that I'm a tax advisor, I'm also a researcher at the Erasmus University at the tax law department. Because I did my PhD in 2006, I wrote a book about the international taxation of artists and sportsmen. And since then, I'm still doing research on how to improve tax rules, how to make them better. I'm writing articles, and that's with a different hat on than as a normal tax advisor. So,
Yeah.
so I also have a research position at the Erasmus University.
Right. And what is the name of the book and where our listeners can find it?
It was published with the IBFD in 2006, and it's called The International Taxation of Performing Artists. And it was published in a doctoral series, so where they publish PhD researchers. Yeah, it's about the problems with artist and sportsman taxation and how to solve them. Yeah, and it was sold quite well. I'm curious whether they still have books.
But they
Or
all
whether it's sold out.
normally also have online versions, right? Or
Yeah,
not
the
really.
IBFD. Yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on their research platform, it can also be found. Yeah.
Right. I remember we met first time at IFA Congress in Berlin last year when we had joint government.
Yeah.
You were playing quite well. What's your routine for finding time for playing golf?
Actually, what I chose to do is to have a golf course as close to my home as possible. Well, it's still 10 minutes by car, but you know that it's easy to go there. I also have friends, and I know people who are living, let's say, 45 minutes, an hour, or even more from their home course. But I believe it's best to have your home course closest to your home as possible. And I'm not practicing that often, but I prefer to play 9 holes, which is, let's say, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then play quite often, but not making it a big time event, but doing it more regular and then on a smaller time. So that's, let's say, what I try to do.
Mainly
And hopefully for the rest, it's talent.
of course. We all hope so. But do you do it for your health or for also for business? Does it make any business for you?
No.
No.
I mean, just once or so that I played with someone, but mostly I do it just for pleasure, for free time, and for health is interesting because I also play football and I play paddle. And that's much more intense, of course, especially playing football is much more intense. And so that's much better for the health, although you also can get injuries from it. But golf is good, being outside, having your mind on playing golf and not on daily matters and being together with friends. And yeah, it's nice. And in Holland, I'm also playing in the April-May national competition. So in the beginning of the year, our season starts, let's say, at the end of March. And we finished the competition just last Sunday. And then you play 4 times 27 holes, 9 holes in the morning, 18 in the afternoon. So that was already quite good to get into golf again.
Wow, impressive. There is, I saw on LinkedIn a post you were publishing about disruption in golf, which is currently going on. There's a certain tension between PGA and Live Tour, and then recently there was this Live Tour fighting in arbitration against World Tour in arbitration called Sports Resolutions. Where this World Tour fined Live players with I think 100,000 euro penalty and wanted to strip them of ranking points. The arbitration said that the World Tour had the right to ban the players from participating in the Live Tour. So you've been following this story. How
Of course.
what's your sort of
the DP World Tour is, I mean, this previously was the European Tour. They renamed it last year in the DP World Tour. And those players have a contract with the DP World Tour for playing in tournaments, being allowed to play in tournaments, but also having the obligation to play in tournaments. And in the contract that they made with the DP World Tour, it's saying that they can play in the US PGA Tour, but they cannot play on other events. I mean, it's also, of course, a commercial matter that the DP World Tour wants to frame itself with the players who are competing in the DP World Tour. And there was a penalty in the contract when they would breach it, when they would go and play to another unallowed tour. Was not named or something, but there was a penalty in it if they would do it, and also if they would choose to do it, then they would be taken off the rankings. And then it happened that they went to the Live Tour for quite some money, and then the DP World Tour said, yeah, we have a contract, you're breaching the contract, so we impose the penalty and we take you off the rankings. The players were saying, yeah, but we are free to go. We are workers and you cannot hold us. You cannot keep us. We can go where we want. And they also refer to the EU legislation about employees. And then the arbitrators were saying, yeah, but you are not employees. You are independent contractors and you have a contract which you need to fulfill. And if you breach it, yeah, then the penalties apply. So that was the outcome. I didn't find it surprising, And you're saying it was 100,000 euros in penalties per person. And if you compare that to the fees that they get from the Live Tour, the millions that they get there to start, the millions to signing bonus is already, depends on the player, but a few millions. And what they can earn with playing in the events, and there is no cut at the Live Tour, so they're earning in every tournament. So then the 100,000 euros in penalties is not that big, but it was more a fundamental question. Can we do what we want, or do we have to respect the contractual relations that we have? And the arbitrators chose for the latter. So yeah.
So where is this all going now? What's your feeling? Will there be any continuation in civil courts or?
I don't think so. No, I think the players leave it as it is. They pay the penalty and they just let it go because, as I said, what they can earn with the Live Tour is much more than what they have to pay in penalties. And they also, of course, have to consider the legal costs if they would go to court. And the general opinion about this is that the legal court will decide in the same manner. So,
Okay. Do you expect any further tensions between the sides?
yeah, of course, because, for the Ryder Cup, which is, of course, the event in 2 years, those players who are on the live tour, they don't qualify. They don't have the right to play in the Ryder Cup. So it will be a very interesting Ryder Cup in September, in Rome, to see that not the big names or perhaps the previously big names are there. And it was interesting at the Masters in the beginning of April in Augusta. I mean, the Masters, they have their own position. They can do what they want. They're not, officially linked, not a part of the PGA Tour. So they chose to invite the players who moved over to the Live Tour to play at the Masters event. So that was an interesting get together, but I didn't have the feeling that it became, I mean, there was no hostility between the players, But yeah, I'm curious how it will go. It might be that that we have, besides the US PGA and the European Tour, which is now the DP World Tour, that we have a third tour going on. It might be for some time. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah.
But the only thing is that here in Holland you cannot see the tournaments of the Live Tour. I mean, they're not on television. So I mean, that makes it weaker than the other tours.
Since we met, I've have some news. I've become an executive at the Latvian Golf Federation, and there are not so many players. There are just a couple of 18-hole golf courses, so a lot of development needed. Any advice you see how best practices of other sports federations, how to develop sports in the country?
I would say when I compare it to Holland, is very important is that the clubs have members and that they offer specific advantages for the members. That's working very well in Holland. So that makes a very good basis for playing golf. And I was saying that I just recently played, up until last Sunday, we played this national competition. And that's one of the advantages of being a member of a golf club, that early in the year, there is a national competition in which you can play against other clubs and etc. So there is an incentive for golf players in Holland to be a member of a club. And so I would say if you want to make golf in Latvia bigger, then it would be good to have real membership clubs and events and exchanges and such. That's one thing. And the other thing is that I can imagine, because Latvia is of course quite small, I can imagine that exchanges are also interesting. So trying to find clubs abroad with whom you can get a sort of friendship program and then exchanges between teams, that would also be nice. I mean, I was thinking about coming over to Riga to play at the end of this month in May at the Latvian Senior Open, International Senior Open, but unfortunately I cannot because I have something else in that weekend. But it would be nice to have such an exchange, so that Latvian players are coming to Holland or to Germany or to other places, and the other way around. And what can also be interesting is, like this international event, can also be interesting to have more international events. I know I've played a few times in the UK in the Battle of Britain. That was in Clacton-on-Sea. They started the tournament because during the Second World War, the airplanes were fighting over Clacton, and they started this Battle of Britain. And that's happening every year. And it's also interesting for foreigners to come over and play there. So that might also be, with an interesting occasion that you can find your golf tournament and make it an international event.
Yeah. Thanks. Great tips. And by the way, in a couple of months, we have journalists coming from the largest Dutch and Belgium golf magazine over to Latvia. So I hope
Okay.
there will be a nice article about
Okay. Oh, nice, nice. Very
our
good.
golf courses.
Perhaps
Uh,
perhaps
yeah.
interesting other is I mean, you have, of course, this DP World Tour, the previous European Tour. We have the Challenge Tour.
Yeah.
But below the Challenge Tour, there is also the Pro Golf Tour, which is a German event. I've organized it twice at the golf club where I'm a member here in Rotterdam. But it can also be interesting for a club in Riga or somewhere else in Latvia to organize a tournament in the Pro Golf Tour during the year. And that's also because then foreigners coming over, they're playing at a very good level, so it can be interesting for people living in Latvia to go and see how they are doing. So that might also be interesting.
Great. That's a great idea. I will spread the news. uh, at the same time, I at the same IFA event, I remember in IFA Berlin, you invited me to go with you to a nice jazz bar in Berlin. I still have quite many songs of this Laurent Henderson on my Spotify playlist. Is that a habit to go to some concerts wherever you go around the world?
Yes. Also here in Holland, I go very often. But when I go somewhere, I always check whether there is something, either music playing or theater, or depending. Theater is of course depending on the language, but my German is quite good, so I would also be interested going to a German theater play or I always try to go somewhere, and as we've experienced together, it was really nice in this bar, and the people sitting there, and an American singer and a very good band, and it was it was great. And I'm going here because not only because of my clients, but I'm going to concerts and theater, I believe 3 times a week or so.
Wow.
And it's very often nearby. I live in Rotterdam. There are many things going on here, but also Holland is not so big. There is much happening. There are many performances and festivals and such. And I have the privilege that I'm invited quite often. So and I like to go there. So that was. In Berlin, it was really nice. It was a risk, I said to you before, I said to you, would you like coming tonight to the show? But I said, I don't know whether it's good or not.
Yeah.
It is always a risk.
It was great actually. But what are your best experiences of going to such concerts? I remember you told you are not a big fan of like big events and big concerts.
Yeah, but like big concerts of mainstream. I mean, I've been to Ed Sheeran. We just listened here this morning in the office to the new album of Ed Sheeran, which is after a few songs we were saying, "Oh, this is really boring," But of course I wanted to see him. And I'm going in the beginning of June. I'm going to Harry Styles.
Yeah.
But I believe his album from last year was really good. So and that is in the Amsterdam Stadium with 45,000 people. I prefer to stay away from those bigger events because it is very often far away. You can't hear it very good. So I prefer to go to this small jazz club as we've been in Berlin, and especially with artists who are at a very early stage, in their career, so that you can see them from the start, and then you can see them develop. And if they grow so big that they go to a big stadium or a big festival, then I can leave them and they can do it on their own.
Right. Sounds you are fan of discovering artists. Uh, but the areas you are working in are seem to be quite wide. What is closer to your heart, like theater? What kind of music, books, paintings? What kind of sports?
Our company is called All Arts.
Yeah.
So we do everything. We also do sports, especially because the international tax rules are the same for sports and for artists, performing artists. I myself, I prefer theater and let's say in music type, I'm a more of Americana, a more of guitar music, not too loud, but with a good hook and with good songs, with good lyrics. That's what I like myself. I sometimes go to classical music, but I'm not really a fan of it. And I sometimes go to dance parties, but that's most often in a professional way, and not because I'm a dance music fan. So I'm more in the middle of dance and guitar and good lyrics. That's what I like.
So you're more into music rather than, let's say, paintings or.
Yeah, that's for
Okay.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure. I'm more
Okay.
into music and also, as I said, theater. Um, Very good theater plays, but also new theater plays. Yeah, I'm also curious what let's say what they want to tell to you, what the story is that they want to tell
Mm,
to you. Yeah,
mm.
yeah.
But let's take the music. I just read that an ability to understand the beauty of art improves the quality of life and reduces stress. Do you have
I
any
absolutely 100% agree.
do you have any tips how to understand the art better? Let's say music, how to listen to the music and understand it.
Uh, I think music mostly has to do with your feelings. It is also about the lyrics, as I said, but it's
Mm,
more about how it is getting into your feeling. That you like it, that you can get carried away, and then you have your images with it, and it it can make you happy or it can make you sad when you are sad. So I think it can also really lift you up, and especially
mm,
especially in life situations, it can really lift you up. But I've the same with going to sports events. I was a Friday here in a second class football tournament, football event, football match.
mm.
And on Saturday, I was at Sparta Rotterdam. They played against PSV, but also being in such a stadium, and then all together, if you have the feeling that the team can achieve something, that can also lift you up.
Sure, sure.
Although the only thing is that very often football is not beauty. I try to find it in it, but that's more in music and theater. Yeah.
Yeah. This Friday, actually, the World Ice Hockey World Championship starts in Riga, Latvia. I have some tickets, so I really looking
Yeah.
forward to go there, and I fully share your views about being present in a
And it
sports
makes me
event.
it
Yeah.
makes me curious. It makes me curious, Janis. Is there when the national teams are coming to Latvia, um, does Latvia then raises a withholding tax on what the teams are being paid?
No, no,
Okay.
there are no changes in the laws. Is that a common practice?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's common practice, but the international associations try to get a tax exemption for this withholding tax because most often, I mean, if a foreign artist is coming over, there will be Latvian withholding tax or not.
Not really. Latvia doesn't impose any withholding taxes on passive income.
Passive income or? So
Like any, only the only withholding tax is on management fees.
okay, okay. So if in my example, Ed Sheeran would perform in Riga, and there would be no withholding tax on his performance fee.
Right.
Okay, okay. So that's the same. Well, you know, that's different in other countries because Germany has a 15% withholding tax, the UK 20%, France 15, Belgium 18, the US 30. Because they're saying, you know, if people earn money in our country, we don't want them to get away with it gross. We want our share of it, you know. And it might also be that they go to a place where they don't report the income, and then they would not pay tax at all, you know.
Mm,
And then it depends on the tax treaties whether or not the source country is allowed to raise the withholding tax or not, you know, with Article 17 for business income and Article
mm,
15 for employment income, but also this special Article 17 for entertainers and sports persons. So that's what our practice is
mm.
very much about, and where I write a lot about. But no, interesting. I didn't know that Latvia did not have a withholding tax.
Right. But it's interesting you're telling this. How do you actually practice that? Do you stay with different artists in the Netherlands, or you go with them to other jurisdictions wherever they go?
No, most often I don't go with them, you know. But for instance, I'm
Like
working for
consult.
yeah, but I'm working for a classical opera singer who's now doing in the Metropolitan Opera in New York. He's now working there, and he has to pay 30% tax there. Well, he's earning $60,000 or so for this project. But then when he returns, if I calculate what the normal US rates are, starting at 10%, 12%, 15, and deduction of expenses, what I expect is from the because he has to pay 30% from 60,000, so he has to pay 18,000 in US tax. And I believe that after the year, he can get a $14,000 tax refund, you know.
Mm,
And if he wouldn't do it, I mean, he has to report the US income in his Dutch income tax return, and Dutch tax is calculated. And I don't believe that the 30% from gross can be offset against Dutch income tax. You know, that's too
mm,
much. So we need to file a US tax return to reclaim a part of the money in order to make the US tax much lower so that he can offset it as a tax credit against the Dutch income tax. And
right.
that's work that we are, I mean, I believe that 2/3 of our work is about this, you know,
Mm,
about that you have to pay tax abroad. Well, not in Latvia, but in the US and in Germany and in France and Spain and everywhere, you know.
mm,
And we work, and then, you know, we try to minimize that as much as possible, and then declare it in the Netherlands and to get the tax credit, and don't end up with excess of tax
yeah.
credit. So don't end up with more foreign tax than domestic tax.
Yeah. But let's step a little bit back. Ho- it's you have built your career just on one tax treaty article, basically. How did it all start? How did you choose your niche to work with?
I was when it started actually quite early. When I was in high school, four friends of mine started a band,
Yeah.
and I decided not to play an instrument, but to become their manager.
Okay.
So I organized their concerts and arranged, you know, a legal entity for it and everything. And then I got interested in the tax aspects of it, and I studied economics. And later I organized concerts and helped musicians, and I became a sound technician. So I was very much in the music business. You know, of course, I was a student by then, but and then I understood that there are special tax rules for performing artists, like this international rule, Article 17, and taxation in the country of the performance. Um, And then I chose at the end of my study to start my own office, to start working independent and not work somewhere else. And that was because I liked being in the music and theater world. I knew that there were special tax rules, and to make that combination, that's what I chose for. And as you said, it is internationally all about Article 17. And after some time, I understood that much is wrong with Article 17. Many things are going wrong. It's very often double taxation or excessive taxation. So I chose to attack it, and I chose to try to make it better and to improve it. And the work is not done. So I've devoted my life to one treaty article, but it's not enough, it's not done yet.
I've read the commentaries. It's so fucking complex.
Yeah, but and also unfair.
Yeah.
Unfair because you're taxed mostly on the gross, So you go to the US, you pay 30% on gross, and they say to you, well, we also know it's way too much, but come back and try to get a part of your money back, because it is too much to get for a credit, and you need to have tax certificates in the right name and everything. So it is, as you say, it's complicated. It can be much easier, and sometimes countries make it easier, like Latvia, but also the Netherlands. The Netherlands chose to remove the withholding tax in 2007. And that was on my initiative, and they decided to do it. And that's very good. That's very good for Holland. And I try to convince others also to do it.
Sure. All Arts firm was created more than 37 years ago. How did that happen?
Yeah, I was studying economics, fiscal economics. And then I decided not to go and work with a bigger firm or with the tax administration, but to start my own office. And that became All Arts. Yeah, that's how it went. And so I'm employing at the moment 6 staff members. And we only do performing artists, we do museums, we do sports, we do venues, we do, but it's always either arts or sports.
Right. Impressive. Congratulations. Any juicy names of your clients you have served that you are proud to share?
At the moment, I'm working, for instance, for Martin Garrix, the DJ. And in the past, I've been working for international tours for Bruce Springsteen and Madonna and U2.
Wow.
So quite some. Yeah. And in golf, I'm playing for the Dutch, the most famous Dutch golf player, Joost Luiten, who's also in the top. So yeah. And we're working for venues in the Netherlands, famous venues in Amsterdam like Paradiso, and we're working for the Lowlands Festival and the Pinkpop Festival, and yeah.
Wow, impressive stuff.
Yeah.
You've met all those famous people. How easy or difficult is to deal with them? Are they from
it's very
different
often,
planet?
It's most often, the bigger names most often are, of course, having their management and agents and everything. So I in the 90s I was introduced to Michael Jackson when he was performing here, but I didn't have the feeling that he found it really interesting, to meet me. And the clients we are working regularly for, we also meet. But what I try to avoid is to be a stargazer, I try to avoid. I mean, it's not very important. When I work for artists and sportsmen who are our regular clients, I want to see them once in a while because it's their business that we represent. So I don't want to stay behind the manager. I also want to meet the clients then, but that is a professional responsibility, so to say, and it's also better for the client. And but especially with international tours, yeah, I hardly meet the main artists, because on the international tour we only do, for let's say a period of a month or so, we do the tax business. Yeah, okay, I've met Madonna, and I've met Michael Jackson, and I've met a few others, but that's fine. Paul McCartney I met, but that doesn't make it more than, because you're only introduced then, because you made a tax deal for the performance.
Yeah. Anything unusual about them that they somehow
I find it interesting, in discussions with the tax administration about deduction of expenses. In some countries, you have the right to deduct expenses, before the tax is taken off. And then, for instance, I had it once with Enrique Iglesias, and he had let's say 2 floors in the hotel in Amsterdam, in a 5-star hotel, 2 floors. I don't know, that was with Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen had 2 floors in the hotel. And then the tax administration is saying, why is he having 2 floors? Is that real business? And I said, yeah, he has to, because he cannot go on the street. He is either in the stadium or in the venue performing, or of course in the car or in the bus to the hotel. And then he has to stay in the hotel all the time. So, and together with other people. And so, and at home, he has a huge home where he's living. So therefore, he also needs some room when he is in the hotel. So, yeah.
Sure.
But it's not something to be jealous of,
I understand.
That was what I also learned this morning about the new album of Ed Sheeran. I read the review in the newspaper, and then I looked it up on Spotify to listen to it. But the newspaper was saying that Ed Sheeran is very unhappy, because he had a few bad years behind him. And then I was wondering, Ed Sheeran, he broke the world record of ticket revenue. He sold the most tickets ever, even more than U2. And he was on stage on his own. So he has earned millions and millions and millions. And how he's going to sing to us, oh, I've been so unhappy over the past years, which shows that money is not making you happy,
Exactly. Yeah. I read somewhere that there is a threshold which you have to reach, and then anything over it is basically not making you more happy.
Yeah, that's what I also believe. Yeah. Yeah. Because then people get problems with, where am I going to spend my money on?
Yeah. 37 years of your business. Any business gurus or business principles you follow to develop your business? How do you look from that side? Any theory you follow?
Yeah, what I chose to do was to be good in something, or well, to be good, that's for others to say, but to know much about the subject, and I chose to publish on it, so to write articles and give also others information for free, so to show that I'm in the subject, that I know a lot about it, and to share it. And that is very much recognized. So people react on it. Quite some believe, well, he's the man we need to go to get advice and to do the work for us. So it is not, I don't try to get clients because of real publicity, but because of the sharing of knowledge, and that is interesting for yourself, because you are also developing yourself on one subject or a few subjects, and you're always interested in it. and it works for others, because others, as I said, are recognizing you for that you are a specialist in it. That's what I like. And what I also chose for is that I want to work for real people, and people who are also very much into what they are doing, very involved and very passionate about what they're doing. So yeah, that gives me also inspiration.
Right. I fully share. Those are great tips you just told. Um, can we just for one question go into politics, please?
Okay, that's good.
What,
That's good.
what's your view on sportsmen from Russia? Many are banned, but many continue participate in different games. Like many are on different in NHL teams. Should they be allowed to play? How do you separate which uh, clients to onboard or refuse? How is it
What
like
I
of?
what I believe what I believe is that most of the Russians uh, uh, cannot be held responsible for what this dictator and his clan around him has started against the Ukraine. So most of the Russians are they how should I say it? They are not uh, doing this damage. They also don't want it. They also want to live a normal life. They also want to be a part of the world, and they don't want the aggression. So,
Mm,
banning an ice hockey player, a Russian ice hockey player from a foreign team, my idea is, why would you do it if that person is just behaving in a normal way?
mm,
Um,
mm,
and because otherwise they become the victim of something that they also don't want. You know.
mm,
So, but on the other end, I also understand the European approach, that we need to make a ban for everything to try to isolate them and try to let them think, well, is this the right way to go, because we don't have any international contacts anymore. So yeah, that's a difficult balance, that you don't want to block people who are not responsible, but on the other hand, we chose not to fight with the Ukrainians, but we chose to do in another way, isolate the Russians and put pressure on them that they are not a part of the normal civilized world anymore.
mm.
So yeah, yeah.
So basically, we have to separate case by case. On
Um, yeah, the problem is when the Russians cannot go abroad anymore, they have to go in the army, you know. I would say get all the Russians who want to get out, let them get out, because the
mm,
fewer militaries the Russians would have to fight against Ukraine.
yeah, right.
The best is to help the Ukraine in every possible way to get this over.
Mm. You you said about two-thirds of your work is on withholding taxes and different cross-border issues of paying for the performances and stuff. Uh, what would else be like typical work you do in the
The
firm?
other one third is partly we are working for some very famous Dutch artists and sportsmen, but who are not international, but who are famous here, and earning a lot of money. And the other part is that we advise festivals, venues, museums, organizers, everyone in the cultural and sports business on their tax affairs. If they work with freelancers, do they need to employ them? How about subsidies and VAT? At the moment, the big thing is uh, when you go to a music concert or a theater play, that's under the low VAT rate in the Netherlands. And there has been an evaluation that perhaps the low VAT rate should be removed and that only the normal rate should apply. And that would cause, I would say, quite some negative effects on the cultural world. So that's what we're working on at the moment. So we do advisory work for very general about different subjects, and we advise some very famous people here, how to handle the tax events.
So you're saying you're against removing this reduced VAT rate for arts?
I'm absolutely against it. Yeah. Because that would take out money from the cultural world, because the ticket prices are already at the level where they should be. There is a market balance for the ticket prices. And then the VAT is for the venue or for the organizer is an expense. And if that goes up from 9% to 21% here in Holland, then the expense would be higher. So there would be less left for the organizer. So that would take money out of the cultural world, and that would not be a good idea, I believe.
Right. I agree with you.
Because is Latvia having, is there a low VAT rate in Latvia?
Yes, there is.
And does that apply to tickets for concerts and such?
As well, in certain there are some limitations, but yes.
Yeah, because that's coming from the EU directive, the VAT directive, and of course it is an option in the VAT directive. But we sorted out here in the lobby that I believe 23 out of 27 EU states are using the low rate for culture. So that it would be strange if the Netherlands would change that.
Right. You told this interesting story about Bruce Springsteen expenses of 2 floors. Any other tax-related story that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite interesting with Prince when he was still alive, because we were making deals on taxation for him, for instance, here in Holland and in Belgium. And he was doing after shows. So he was playing for 3 hours, either in the main venue or in Belgium. He was playing outside, outdoor, in Ghent in Belgium. And then later at night, he was going to Brussels to do an after show, and everyone had to pay cash. So in the end, his manager got a big bag of cash money, and it was not declared for taxation. So the next year he came back, and I was talking to the tax inspectors for this tax deal, and they're saying, yeah, we still want to talk about last year's after show in Brussels because you didn't say anything to us.
Okay.
How much did he earn there? I said, well, I didn't count it, what was in the bag, but.
So does it happen often that you go and negotiate with the authorities about certain artists?
Not so often anymore, because the music business is much better structured, much better organized. It's not rock and roll as it used to be. Like with this Prince tour, there was, what was it, 10 years ago or so, and this guy from Denmark, that was really rock and roll. He had given the highest price to Prince, and he had to earn it back. So he did really everything to make money. That was good. But nowadays, I would say it's, especially with Live Nation, the American company who has bought already promoters in Europe. It's so structured, and especially because everything is going, of course, via ticket providers. There's not so, those things are not very much in it. So yeah. But sometimes sometimes it's good to invite the tax inspectors to show, especially when they are new. It's very good to invite them and take them over to a festival or to a performance and to see what's happening, because, you give them a budget and the budget is saying, yeah, there are 20 trucks, with sound and lighting and stage equipment and everything, 20 trucks. And then they're saying 20 trucks, And if you go to the stadium and they see 20 trucks and they see what's happening on stage, then they say, okay, yeah, now I understand. So it sometimes works, to take them with you and to show them around. Yeah.
And then is there some sort of rumor that there is a sort of bribery going on? That,
You mean with the tax inspectors?
yes, that.
No, there is no need to.
yeah.
There is no need
Yeah.
to, because especially the Americans, they are so well organized with all the budgets and everything that there is no need to say to the tax, because I mean the source taxation is not bad on itself, because you have to pay it in the country where you perform, and you have to declare the income in the country where you live, in your residence country, and you can take the foreign tax as a credit against your national tax. So the only thing we need to do is to bring down the source tax to a level which is creditable in the residence state. There is no need to that there is no source tax or whatever. It has to go back to a level which can be taken back home and can be credited. So.
Right. All right. Another question I wanted to ask is that I was shocked that to see that in Latvia, not so many adults are doing sports actively, like 5 to 10% of people opposed to some 60, 70 in Scandinavia. And there's very high alcohol consumption and any tax incentives working in, let's say, Netherlands or somewhere else to encourage healthier lifestyle people going and doing regular sports, or that doesn't depend on?
In Holland, there is you can choose between the low VAT rate and an exemption for sports. So that's already good. There is not that much VAT on it, so the price can stay lower. And that's not only for football clubs and for hockey clubs or for athletics, but it's also for fitness, indoor fitness. So that's very good. That's already a tax incentive, I would say, and it's good to keep it that way. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine in Holland that this percentage of active people is also not so high. And that's a problem of these days, so to say. I consider esports, so gaming, I also consider it as sports, but it's not so good for health, of course, So it's much better that young people go out and play football and other sports than that they stay at home and do a game on their telephone or on another technical thing. So yeah, it's much better to play football yourself than to play FIFA on the Xbox.
How come e-gaming is sports?
I wrote an article. I wrote in the Bulletin for International Taxation in 2018. I wrote an article called Esports and Taxation. And if you look at esports, and it's perhaps not the movement. Well, you need to be very fast with your hands, of course, in esports, but the mental aspects also makes, I mean, all the impressions that you get when you're playing also makes it, in my understanding, makes it a sport, and I quoted a German research outcome that an esports player at a top level has the same impressions as a Formula One driver.
Wow.
So that can be quite heavy. Yeah. But it's still much better to run yourself than to let someone else run.
Sure. Do they have any specific tax issues in esports?
Yeah. One of the issues is that, like with League of Legends and Fortnite and those games, I mean, when it is a live event, so that it's done somewhere really in a venue, then it's clear that it falls under Article 17 because you're performing there. But most of the esports and the games are, of course, done online. And like with Fortnite, the Fortnite owner is paying out from the US, is withholding 30% US tax. But the activity is not in the US. I mean, the gamer is just in Riga or in Amsterdam or in Brussels or whatever. So there should not be US tax on it. So that is a problem because the game owner, EA Sports, is not really willing to have an exemption, and it's hard to explain to them. It's hard even to get in contact with them, about this taxation. And if they withhold the 30% US tax, then you don't get a tax credit in your home country because you didn't work there in the US. So I believe that is a big problem in esports.
Right. Any other interesting tax issues regarding digital world like arts and NFTs?
I'm not sure. I believe NFT is very often. I mean, that's of course art, so it's not performances, so it doesn't fall under Article 17. So it's regular taxation issues. Of course, VAT is a matter,
Yeah.
and income taxation is where the owner resides. Now, I would say what I find is an interesting comparison between Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 for the digital economy, of course, and then the comparison with Article 17. So, I mean, artist and sportsman taxation is not based on permanent establishment, as Article 7 is, but Article 17 is based on taxation where you perform your activities and where the users are, where your services are being used. And that's the same with Pillar 1 and 2, or Pillar 1, first Pillar 1. Pillar 1 is also taxation where the users are, So even though there is no permanent establishment, still you are being taxed in the country where your services are used. So there is a big comparison between Pillar 1 and artist and sportsman taxation. And for Pillar 1, the OECD, of course, understood that you have to make a high threshold because otherwise also the smaller and medium-sized companies are involved, are taking into and that makes it much too complicated, So a high threshold. And secondly, in Pillar 1, the tax administrations of all the countries involved need to sit together, to divide the profit so that also the resident state can give the right tax credit. And those two examples are those two, let's say, measures that are proposed. I also would like to have for artists and sportsmen. So I would like to have a high threshold so that the small and medium size are taken out. And I would like to have international exchange between tax authorities about profits and taxation so that the residence country can apply the correct method for elimination of double taxation, the right tax credit, So there is a big comparison. I mean, Pillar 1 looks the same as Article 17 for artists and sportsperson. And it's the same with Pillar 2, because artists and sportsmen also have a sort of minimum taxation abroad, because the country of the performance has the right to tax it, and perhaps they have to pay extra tax in the resident state. So I would say the new proposals for Pillar 1 and 2 should also be applied to artists and sportsmen taxation.
How about influencers? Do they also fall under the category of your clients?
Interesting, eh? Interesting is whether an influencer is a performing artist.
Yeah.
because what the influencer is doing is, of course, making advertisement for products.
Yeah.
So is it real advertisement, or is there also an artistic element in it? You know, when I look at the commentary of Article 17 of the OECD, I believe very often the influencer is an artistic creator, is an entertainer, is a performer. So, but that makes it quite complicated because they are not doing their performances abroad. They do it very often at home or in their own place. And when the money is coming from the other country, there is no taxing right because the influencer is not going there. So my idea is that most often influencers are entertainers, but that it doesn't give the country of source where the money is coming from the right to tax it because the influencer is doing the work at home in his own place. I'm working now on a big, there is a big seller of products in Germany, and he is hiring an agency in Holland for Dutch influencers. But the Dutch influencers are not working in Germany. They're working here in Holland because you don't see the difference, you know? So the German big company can pay out gross. There should not be a withholding tax on it, even with Article 17, because the influencers are not working in Germany.
Right. When we speak of influencers, I always remember this great movie, Triangle of Sadness. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Really,
So
really
this
good.
influencer on yacht. It's
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
picture with not eating food, but just making photos.
Yeah. And all the time he needs to post something, you know, he's only busy with posting. I mean, it's in beautiful circumstances, you know, when the sun is shining, but he's only working on, do I look good, you know, and what is my next post? And
yeah. And then the question is, where is the yacht located to tax it right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
I've seen uh, some interesting contracts still regarding this sportsman division between or flirting, let's say, between salaries and image rights. I thought this disease is over, but still it's ongoing. Seems to be, at least in some countries. What
Okay.
do you see trends in that area?
I also believed it was really over because, of course, Spain and the UK, they both have a big history with image rights. You know,
Yeah.
in Spain, it was around the year 2000. There was a court case, a court decision, because image rights are there a part of the constitution. You know that you have the right of your own image. You know. And then, especially from Real Madrid, the players came up with an agreement with the tax administration that 15% of their total fee could be considered as a compensation for image rights.
Yeah.
You know, and initially they transferred the rights to an offshore company, but that was not accepted by the tax authorities. So then they took it back to an onshore company. But from 10 years ago, the Spanish government, the Spanish tax authorities attacked all those constructions. And of course, there was, because of the Messi affairs and Ronaldo was more about advertisement, but also about image rights. But interesting is that Xabi Alonso, the former Spanish football player who played with Real Madrid and Liverpool and Bayern Munich, you know, that he won his case. He had his image rights brought into a Madeira company, so a Portuguese on the island of Madeira with a very low taxation. And that was accepted by the Spanish court. So that might give some sort of new hope and life for image rights in Spain. But on the other end, in the UK, you know, where they had this 80-20 split, so 20% for image rights, and that came after the Bergkamp and Plet case in the year 2002, the decision there. And for years that really worked. But then the then the UK tax authorities also decided, yeah, well, most of the players, they don't have such an image, so they started a case on a Brazilian player who was playing with Hull City, who was not even, Giovanni is his name, he was not even in the Brazilian national team. He was just a midfielder, sometimes on the bench, not always playing, and 20% of the total fee was considered to be image rights. And then the UK tax authority was saying, yeah, this is just to bring down taxation. We believe the 100% is fully, completely for his salary. So it should be taxed under UK tax. And they won the case. So at the moment in the UK, I don't believe that there are really contracts with image rights going on.
I saw
But
it
it
in
might be in other
basketball.
places.
I saw it in basketball recently.
All right.
In European basketball. But do you see some tendency regarding proportion of salaries to image rights?
I mean, in my understanding, image rights is besides for a very famous person, but otherwise it's not possible.
It's gone.
Yeah, and it should not be possible. But if a very famous person, sports person, or an artist wants to split off the image rights, then there is of course an initial sale to the limited company, to the legal entity where the image rights are going to. So I don't believe in real image rights. Well, I believe in real image rights, but I don't believe in these structures of image rights.
Right. And what's your feeling about those big scandals with the image rights, where the money was going to some nice offshore island and somebody forgot to declare it? Is that also the trend over and then gone?
I think that with the UK cases and with the big Spanish cases, I don't believe that clubs, especially under the UEFA, the FIFA financial, fair play regulations, that they don't want to do it anymore, because the risk is too high that they get problems with it, and then it costs a lot of money to solve everything. So I have the feeling that image rights, especially in football and other sports, is over perhaps sometimes, but then it should be realistic.
Regarding UK Premier League, I saw a recent article by my UK tax guru I follow, this Dan Nadler, and he wrote about the football agents that they were all actually at the same contracts on both sides, representing players and then football clubs.
Yeah, I think it's wrong, but there is something behind it, because most of the countries don't allow the deduction of expenses for employees. That's happening in Holland, that's happening in Italy, in France. As an employee, you cannot deduct expenses, but you have to pay 3% of your salary to your manager, to your agent, let's say, mostly your manager. But you cannot deduct it. So we also set up structures years ago that the football agent sends his invoice to the club, and there is a contract saying that the agent is representing the club, and also under the employment conditions, I should say it, the ILO, the International Labour Organization, the conditions. You're not allowed to send an invoice to someone who is looking for work, for employment. So it is, in that respect, it is right to send your invoice to the club, to the employer, But what is going wrong in some cases, not only in the UK, but also a Dutch player in Italy experienced it, is that, the agent sends the invoice to the club because of tax purposes, because then the VAT can be reclaimed and it can be an expense for the club, and otherwise it would not be deductible for the player. But then the agent is also doing some work for the player, which is not related to the transfer, but it is regular management work. So then the player also gets an invoice for other services.
Mm.
Yeah, and then it can look as if both sides are invoiced, you know, both sides are
Yeah.
paying to the player. And that can also easily go wrong. Yeah, yeah. I don't find it strange, especially because football agents are not always so strong, you know. So
Mm.
yeah, yeah. And if they charge both sides, I would say that's not correct. But it might be that the invoices are for different services.
Mm.
But the origin is a tax problem. The origin is that, I mean, employees cannot deduct expenses in most countries. And I would say that is the basis of where this has gone wrong.
Right. Sounds logical. Uh, the last question on taxation is generally that you mentioned pillars 1 and 2, some other trends lately. Of course, every year the tax world is changing. Do you see a big impact on your business in that respect, or basically from your perspective? Not so much changes regarding your clients.
No, not with pillar 1 and 2 in my business. Well,
Yeah.
what I hope is that the tax rules for artists and sportsmen are getting better. You know, like the US is having in its treaties a minimum threshold of $20,000 or a comparable amount, so that if you go to another country, you don't have to pay tax when your fee stays under $20,000 each per person. You know. And also when the money is going to an independent theater company or sports team or whatever, you know, not to a legal entity owned by the artist or a sports person. So when the money is going to this independent entity, then it's also not taxable. So the threshold and the limited approach of paragraph 2 of Article 17. And if every country would start doing this, then only the top stars are taxed and the small and medium size are out of the taxation. I would prefer that everyone would do it, you know, would follow the US example. That would make business for us much smaller, you know. But I would not have a problem with it when that would be introduced. I would like the OECD and the United Nations to follow the US model as an example for artists and sportspersons.
And you will be able to do something more meaningful, like playing golf. Yeah. So that brings me to my last question to every guest I have invited. So, what is your version of meaning of life? So, what's the point of everything that we are doing?
I believe very much in being together. You know, being together with friends, being together with family, being together and speak to each other, discuss matters, enjoy things together, enjoy nice things together, being together in a football stadium, being together on the golf course as we were, you know, in the beginning of September in Berlin. That was really great, you know. Being together in theater, being together at home and having good discussions. That's for me, that's the main essence of life.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. This was Mr. Dick Molenaar. It was a great pleasure talking to you, Dick, and then hope to enjoy some time together with you also in Mexico later this year when we have IFA Congress there in a nice place.
Yeah, let's do it.
Next to the golf course. Yeah.
Thanks for the invitation, Yanis.
Thanks. It was a pleasure. Thank you. See you soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
Bye.